statement. Please do not address any personnel issues. If there's personnel issues, those are to be handled through either a building principal or through our admin office. If you are planning to speak, we ask that you fill out a card with your information on it, and we ask that these cards be turned in by the beginning of the public speaking time. Anything additional?
Nope.
All right, thank you. We're going to move forward with 4 consent agenda, August 16th, 2021 minutes, September 2021 personnel report, and August 2021 payables.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Second by Brittany. Were there any questions, changes, anything in there to note? All right, can we have roll call, please?
Asper, yes. Barber Garcia,
Yes.
Clement,
Yes.
Esich,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Sadu,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. On to 5, reports and information. 5A, do we have our student representative from the high school here? Okay, if she gets here later, we'll flip her in at the end. Thank you. 5B, bond update, Mr. Hess.
Microphone tonight. I'm sure everybody can hear me really well. We continue to move through the punch list items that have accumulated over the course of the finishing up construction. We have a lot of items, a fairly good-sized list of items that have been delayed due to either COVID, Texas, or just getting stuck in the Suez Canal, believe it or not. And now the backup of shipping containers outside the port of San Diego is where our current fiberglass is reported to be. So we have a lot of things that are definitely worldwide sourced, and they are on their way. But we continue to move through the program nicely. The last items are scheduled, believe it or not, unfortunately, for the beginning of December, but they are scheduled. They haven't changed in a while, so that's good. In terms of the administration building, we are looking at a 2-week to occupancy time frame. Yes, to be honest, I have my fingers crossed. There's a lot to do over there, but we begin moving furniture next week, which means we'll be taking some of the furniture out of here. So if we go longer, some weeks we're going to be uncomfortable. Not looking forward to that. So, but we're doing real well over there, and hopefully we'll have that building wrapped up here shortly. Met today with Clammer and Cresa and discussed some of the options for what we're going to do next summer. So we're already looking forward to getting Dutton out of the ground, New Dutton. We're already looking forward to getting the community center, or whatever the name will be shortly here, out of the ground. But we also have a lot of other things to do that we're on the bond list that we're looking forward to getting done. Chief amongst which, now that we've done pavement, will be some roofing. So that's a big project and a big piece for next summer. So we're already starting to look forward to it. So other than that, the bond proceeds well. And financially, I believe we're doing real well. So Sarah, we can have more information on that in the coming couple of weeks. Thank you. Any bond questions?
Tim.
I just want to thank you, Matt, and everyone on the bond team, our construction crews. There's been a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, including opening schools. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to have you on the team and for all you do. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And if prior to the start of school, I actually looked all confident and it wasn't sweating, I was lying.
We knew that.
That was a sweater. It's real sweat getting down to that last little bit there to get Kraft and Duncan open. So.
Well, and not only getting them open, but thank you to our staff in all of the buildings. You know, I mean, I realize, you know, everybody put up with a little mess along the way to get things moving, but obviously in a school district, there's no good time to do this.
Yeah,
I mean,
and summers get shorter and shorter.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's a few little things left. We still have some rooms that are not cooling as well as they could be, or not, you know, and eventually that means they won't be heating as well as they could be, but we're addressing those items to get them up and done. So.
Thank you. Julie, did you have?
I just wondered what magic you pulled to get the parking lot numbers done in one night.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I'm not revealing that trick.
Yeah, something happened, but well done on that. One day.
The best part was, is they weren't even doing them in order. When I started to see them, they were like over in one side and somewhere in the back, and I thought, oh, this is gonna be messed up.
I was like, there's no way. I'm like, just park wherever.
Yeah.
And then she's like, they were there.
Yeah,
And I have that gentleman's card in my file.
Tell them well done.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are gonna move on to 5C, which is student achievement data. We have, Mrs. Perkowski. Well, and Dr. Martin, you're participating in this as well from down below.
You want Dr. Martin home, please?
So, good evening to the board and to all the members of our audience. Tonight we're going to do our annual review of our student achievement data. So if we can go ahead and pull that up. And I'm going to tag team this one with Ms. Perkowski, just to kind of set a little bit of the context of the particular meeting, or the student test data. What makes this a little bit unusual, we try to look at a multi-year view, but unfortunately because of COVID and the impact of COVID, we're looking at pre and post COVID-19 data. And so you'll see that moving forward. So I'm not sure if my clicker is working. Okay, thank you. So a couple things I think is important. You're gonna notice in this presentation a simple point variation as well as a growth rate analysis. We will, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Again, we try to look at 3 years of data, but unfortunately because of COVID-19, the state examinations were canceled in the year of 2020. The data analysis compares statewide and similar demographic schools. When we say similar demographics, we're talking about school districts that will have the same type of free and reduced lunch count or other racial demographics. We also look at the overall state average as a comparison group, and then we look at our NWEA data. That is not a statewide assessment, that is our own internal district assessment, where we look at grade level cohorts, and we do that 3 times a year. We start at the beginning, the middle, and the end to see how our students progress throughout the course of the year. And then with this particular data, I would say in all cases, it's important to note that COVID played an impact on the number of students who tested. It played an impact on the daily attendance of the students and staff, whether they were impacted because they had COVID and they had to quarantine, or because they were identified for quarantine as a close contact. In some cases, we had multiple students or multiple staff members who had multiple quarantine sessions. So all of that has to be taken into consideration when you look at the data. So this next chart shows just a quick, simple growth rate data analysis. You take the present year's data, you subtract the past year's data, you get that sum, and then you divide it by the past year's data. So there's a quick example, just throwing some numbers in, 310 over 205 divided by 201. So let's say if we scored 310 in an area this year, last year we scored 205, you do the calculation, and in that case that would show that you had a 51% growth rate. So in one way you can look at this and say, oh gee, they increased 105 points. But when you look at the different scales of the different tests, really looking at a growth rate analysis makes more sense, and this is most common what you hear when you talk about corporate America reporting quarterly earnings or quarterly losses. They look at a growth, or in some cases a negative growth rate. Another thing that I thought was important, so I grabbed a statement that was in a press release from the Michigan Department of Ed. Without reading it all, the state superintendent clearly laid out that the disruptions of the pandemic inevitably resulted in unfinished learning for many of the children. They also noted that any analysis of M-STEP results must factor in low participation rates around the state. I think we're a little bit better than normal because we were one of the few places that from the very first day, all of our schools were open for face-to-face instruction for those who wanted it, and we also had an online option. The majority of our kids came face-to-face every day that they were able to come face-to-face. There was only 2 exceptions at the high school. One when the state shut the entire, all the high schools and middle schools around throughout the state, and the middle schools, and then the first week in the school year, we had to shut down temporarily because of COVID numbers. The other exception, we had one elementary that had to shut down for about a week. Everybody else was continuing to go. So we experienced a little bit better than the average in that sense. Overall, the M-STEP, this is a 21st century test that's given primarily online each spring. It goes 3rd through 7th grade. It used to kind of go 3rd through 8th, but a few years ago, the 8th graders kind of got switched over to a different form of a test to make them more in line with high school over time. 5th, 8th, and 11th grade students, they take their assessment, an additional assessment in science and social studies that the other grades don't take. And again, 2020 data is not available, so we can't do a 3-year look. And if anyone is curious in the data source, this is all housed in the My School data source, housed by the state of Michigan. So myschooldata.org /dashboard and -home. And this presentation will be made available online in a few days. So, in looking at our data, one more click, if I can, there we go. So I want to explain this to give the context, and then the rest of the presentation really goes pretty quick. So when you look at Caledonia here, this is Caledonia Elementaries. It's all subjects in 2019, and so in this case, I'm going across the gray bars. You'll see in 2019, 68% of our kids passed, or 68% of our kids met or exceeded the standards for proficiency on their state level assessment. The next year testing in 2021, because we had to skip 2020, that went up to 75% of our kids passed, or not passed, but met the standards and all met or exceeded the standards in all state level assessment. The next column, the middle column, is what we call the similar schools. So if you look at our schools such as Caledonia, and you try to compare Caledonia Elementary to Dudden, or to Paris Ridge, or to Kettle Lake, it's not an apples to apples comparison, because demographically speaking, the state looks at them through the eyes of similar schools in terms of their makeup, compared to other schools with a very similar population from around the entire state. So that's that middle category. So you'll see for 2019, similar schools to Cal-El, 57% of their kids met or exceeded the state standards. When you look at 2021, they experienced a drop. This is kind of what the state superintendent was saying. We saw this pretty much across the entire state, that because of the pandemic, because in some cases kids were online, they were coming to school in a hybrid fashion, a couple days a week, whatever it is, there was significant drops reported around the state in similar schools. When you look at the third column, state of Michigan, this is again the same comparison, 2019 to 2021. You see 42% of the kids met or exceeded the standards in 2019 as compared to 37% of the kids in 2021. So when you look at the wording across the bottom, to make it quick and simple, you see a 7-point increase in the test scores, but from a growth model perspective, that shows a 10% increase in the overall performance, meaning that for Cal-El, 10.3% more of our students met or exceeded the proficiency standard as compared to the previous year. Similar schools, similar demographic schools to Cal-El had a 7-point drop in test scores, meaning that 12.3% fewer students met or exceeded the state standards. And so in that particular case, you see that Cal-El was already above the similar schools and certainly significantly outperforming the state. And then finally, the last statement, the state of Michigan, we started out below Caledonia. The state of Michigan started out below Cal-El, and the overall state average had a 5-point drop. So in this particular case, all subjects tested at the elementary level, Cal-El for all students, we had a 10.3% increase, while similar schools dropped during this very same time period by 12.3, and then across the state of Michigan, a 5-point or almost a 12% drop. So that becomes the backdrop of how you read the data in these slides. So we're looking at, there's a point increase, but really the growth or the negative growth analysis is probably most appropriate. And so I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, and she'll hit the next couple.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. We are going to look then at each building, all subjects, ELA and math. So that was all subjects. Here we're looking at English language arts. I don't know where I'm pointing this. There we go. As you can see, we had an increase from 2019 to 2021 by 5 points, so a 0.67 growth rate. And you can see the similar schools had a drop rate in the state of Michigan. With a 1 percentage point, we kind of just said, maintained the score. So if there's any point on here where it's up or down a point, we just say maintained. In terms of math, again, a really large celebration in math at Caledonia from 67% to 83%. That's a pretty impressive jump at 23.8% growth rate. And again, we saw some drops with similar schools at -12 growth rate and a -10.3 for the state of Michigan. Jumping to Dutton, these are, again, we're starting with all subjects for Dutton. We maintained at 58 to 57% here, and then there was a drop for similar schools, -7.5 growth rate, and then a -11.9 for the state. Jumping into Dutton, where we're specifically looking at English language arts, we actually went up in that category by a 2-point increase, or a 0.31 growth rate, and similar schools dropped, and the state of Michigan maintained. When we look at math, at Dutton, we had a maintained status. From 2019 to 2021 for math, similar schools went down and state of Michigan went down. And again, this will be available on the website if you'd like to look at it more deeply, but this will be diving into this with principals and looking to see where we can make improvements. Certainly some celebrations, but also areas that we want to improve upon. So jumping to Emmons Lake, this is all subjects, maintaining the all subjects category. And then looking at similar schools dropped, state of Michigan dropped as well, similar ranges within the 4 to 7 range typically. In terms of English language arts, we had a celebration going up 0.3% growth rate. Meanwhile, the similar schools had a -7% drop and the state maintained. Jumping to math at Emmons Lake, we again maintained in the math category, and similar schools in the state of Michigan dropped from between -8.5 and -10.3% growth rates. Looking at Kettle Lake, we are looking at a 5-point increase for all subjects, so going up 0.79% growth, and then drops for similar schools in the state of Michigan, kind of a consistent trend. Kettle Lake English Language Arts, we had a drop, so we were at -4.2 here, or a 3-point drop. Similar schools went down as well, about the same, and then the state of Michigan maintained. Still, though, as you can see, way below where Caledonia is. In terms of Kettle Lake for math, we had a celebration in here, again, a 0.8% increase, and 8.8, positive to the positive, or a 6-point increase for math at Kettle Lake, and then a drop for similar schools in the state of Michigan. Jumping to Paris Ridge, we had a drop in all subjects. This is, again, we're putting them all together. So negative 8.6 here, growth rate, and also similar schools in the state of Michigan had a much more significant drop rate. Not that we like any drop rates, but we like to have this comparison to be able to see how we're doing. English language arts, we had a negative 8.7% drop in ELA, while similar schools dropped as well, and our state of Michigan maintained. Looking at math, maintained in the math category, a negative 12.5% drop for similar schools, and state of Michigan, a 4-point drop or negative 10.3% growth rate. Moving from elementary to the middle schools, we had Duncan Lake here, all subjects. We had a 2-point increase in test scores or a positive 3.7% growth rate, with again similar schools, and state of Michigan dropped, kind of the trend. In ELA, we maintained, and similar to the state, but still, again, significantly above the state average, and similar schools had a drop. And in math, we had an increase of 2 points, and positive 0.39% growth rate, with drops to similar schools in the state of Michigan. At Craft, and we know it's Craft Intermediate, but last year they took the test under Craft Meadows Middle School. They maintained and then had a drop for both under all subjects, and an increase in English language arts by a nice 8-point increase or a plus 13.3% growth rate, and similar schools had a drop while state of Michigan maintained. In math, we maintained and had drops at similar schools in the state of Michigan. Jumping to high school, so our Michigan Merit Exam is primarily an 11th grade test, and it consists of 3 different components. So it's the College Board SAT, which is reading, writing, and math, and then an ACT Work Keys job assessment, and then an the M-STEP test in science and social studies. So with that, this is the high school these are again all subjects, had a drop of negative 12.9. This is all subjects, versus the negative 12.3 in the similar schools, so similar, and then a negative 11.9 for the state, but still, the state much lower than we are, starting at 42% to 37%. We maintained across the board, all of us, Caledonia similar schools in the state of Michigan. I think this is the only slide where everybody maintained, so I'd be interested to dive into that a little more and find out what's going on across the board. And then when we look at math, we had a slight drop, negative 4% growth rate, and we had drops with similar schools and maintained for the state of Michigan. NWA, as Dr. Martin mentioned earlier, is an adapted achievement and growth test, so it creates a personalized assessment for each student's learning. And we are going to be focusing today on math and English language arts, K-8. So this is just a 1-page kind of snapshot of that. You can see that the majority of scores from 1819 to 2021 are either neutral or increased. So, and the ones that did decrease were by a few points. Not that. Go ahead.
And so I think what's kind of significant here, even if you see where it maintained, you got to think in the context of 2018, 2019. We never heard of COVID, and so for the kids, let's say in kindergarten ELA, or the kids in kindergarten math, or any one that you see, that would be compared to the kindergarten kids that was 2 years prior to them. So one would think in a COVID year, if we were not doing a good job, if our teachers weren't really knocking it out of the park, you should see pretty much all red arrows because of all the disruptions in COVID. So when you see that, like 3rd grade math and 3rd grade ELA, overall across the district, how the kids scored at the end of the year on NWA was very consistent to how they did even in the midst of COVID.
Great point, thank you. So just summarizing that, we had 18 total categories on this last slide right there. And of the categories, we had 5 that improved by 1 to 3 points, 8 that stayed the same from the 2018-19 year, which is, again, miraculous with the number of students that were out and that actually took the test, and then 5% that reduced by 2 to 5 points. So again, in spite of everything, we're pretty proud of the results that we had. So our next steps, as we do on an annual basis, will be to meet with principals. They've already received the overall data, but look at the results more deeply by, diving specifically into building and subject areas, and then looking for those trends as best we can. Again, not having a 3-year trend of data, but diving into them and figuring out, what are the areas that we need to improve? How do we address those? Is it a curriculum issue? Is it an instruction issue? Is it some other kind of issue that we need to look at? And then we're going to review our district data against that county and state in all subject areas, really the similar schools and county, and then really make those improvement plans in the areas of deficiency so we can look at that. And if we need to adjust our curriculum rotation, because, for instance, a few years ago, I think it was before I came, but math scores were lower. We looked at that, and there was a curricular issue across the board, so that was one of the curricular reviews, and a consistent curriculum across the board in math recently this past year. So that would be one of the areas that a suggestion might come out of after looking at this data more intensely. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Martin for some celebrations that we had, because there certainly were some.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we thought that was just really important to note is that 4 out of our 5 elementary buildings essentially were able to sustain or improve with regards to the overall percentages of students who met or exceeded the standards when the state average regressed by about 12%. So I know we hear a lot about COVID. It was tough on everyone. But I think this is a testament to how great our teachers and our administrators were able to step up to the challenge, focus on what we could control, and do everything we could to try to give our kids a good quality education. Because across the state and across the country, we see some significant impacts with COVID on student performance. And we were able to at least maintain or in some cases improve. Also, both of our middle schools were able to sustain or improve with regards to the overall percentage of students who met or exceeded the standards when the state average regressed by nearly 11 or 12% again. I think it was 11.9 to be specific. So clearly we have some areas to work on, but overall we did well. When we looked a little bit deeper, and we'll continue as Ms. Perkowski had mentioned to dig deeper into the data with our administrators to figure out where we can get better. There were some areas that kind of stood out as highlights, if you will. 4th, 5th, and 7th grade math across the board, we saw some nice improvement, which is great considering that we recently did a new math adoption and trying to work through that process and make sure that our teachers are prepared. And clearly, they're showing that they're stepping up and doing a great job. We also saw some nice ELA growth, particularly in 5th and 7th grade. There were areas that we certainly want to celebrate the work that all the buildings did. So with that, this again, for those who want to go and dig through some data, you can go to the state website. That's where we pulled our information from, and they can play around themselves. But essentially, we will open it up for questions from our board.
Go ahead, Julie.
I thought overall was fantastic compared to what I thought it might be, so kudos to the teachers and administrators for that.
Thank you.
I know we adopted the curriculum kind of schedule where we don't go too long before we introduce and look at it. Where are we at in the high school math curriculum? Or is that coming up? We're implementing it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I was just gonna say the same thing. It's pretty amazing what was accomplished, and kudos to you all, and even down to the maintenance and everybody that helped get the buildings open and keep things operating. So it was a great job. I'm assuming we have some kind of meeting that we're able to put you talked a little bit about putting the elementary schools together, or principals sharing some of the ideas and best practices. Can you talk just a little bit about some of the differentials between some of the elementary schools and where they're performing to some of the other ones, and how we can close that gap?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we'll get in a room and look at is, what's happening when we look at, let's say, Caledonia Elementary and say, ELA scores jumped, X number of percentage. What's going on over there? Those are the kinds of conversations we're having. Is it is it time? You know, one of the comments that was made by one of the elementary principals this spring was that they actually felt like they had more instructional time because, and again, not that we don't love our families and parents, but kids were just literally going in and getting started right away. There wasn't that gap and delay. You know, we're walking down the hall and you're talking, and we love that, but, you know, kids got right away to their work. And, oh my goodness, I mean, some of the scores, it's like, I am thoroughly impressed by the scores. I mean, I've seen this in a lot of districts, but to be able to do this during a pandemic is pretty impressive. So the conversations that we have will be, what are you doing that's well, you know, what's going well, and how do we replicate that across the district? So it could mean, again, curricular changes, it could mean instruction time, it could mean a process or system that's happening in a certain building that may not be happening in other buildings. And that's the collaboration that we have all the time, and that's how we were able to do, really rewire the entire operations of the district during the pandemic, was the collaboration of principals via Zoom to, you know, work with their building staff to make it happen, and everyone else too, food service, you know, adjusting everything else, maintenance, et cetera. But that's really what we do on a regular basis, collaborate, and I think people will be really excited to dive in and figure out, you know, what are we doing in these areas that are successful and how do we replicate that?
Thank you. Very good job.
Yeah, thanks.
To our teachers and to our administrators that are here, thank you.
Kudos.
It's just amazing. And please pass on a thank you to your support staff and the lunch people and the bus drivers, because every single person plays a part in that day to make it happen for the kids, and to the parents who got their kids there. You know, thank you. Absolutely. It's a great thing to see. So impressive across the board. Thank you. Anything else? No? All right. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to discussion items. 6A is the MASB delegate. We have this, I think that you've seen it either in your board memo. You should have probably also got an email on it. It comes up in the month of November, but we do have to specify a delegate that would be a voting delegate on behalf of the board. I know that Tim is listed as our I'm drawing a blank, but liaison for, you know, for that purpose.
Legislative
Thank you.
liaison.
And so I didn't know if that was something that you were interested in doing. I think Kyle has also done that in the past. I don't know, just wanted to check with
Yeah.
people. I mean, anybody is welcome to sign up and go, but we can just have one voting delegate.
I would be interested. I just have to make sure my schedule is going to permit me to be there during that time. So by the end of this week, I should have an answer. I think the deadline is the 10th, 8th.
Yeah, it is the 8th. Do we need to set it up, though, so that we would vote on like a first person and a second, or do we not need to do that? Just agree. Okay. Is that all right with everybody if Tim lets us know if he's available for that? Okay. And if you're not, then we'll dig a little deeper and see what everybody else's availability looks like.
And if I'm not, maybe Kyle, you could give a quick summary on what the last, 19 was like.
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, I think, Tim, you had suggested too to have that opportunity to do that, but with so much stuff going on, I can tell you, just voting on some of those items, it was almost split. It was pretty intense. So it's good to have a representative here to reflect what we want to happen. So I'm glad that we can get somebody to go.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So we'll look for you to just fill us in on that, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions on that? No? All right. Great. Thank you. If you don't have the email with the information on it, though, let me know, and I'll make sure that it gets out, or one of us will get it to you. Okay? All right. We're going to move on to 7, which is Board and Superintendent Report. 7A is Curriculum and Learning Committee.
The Curriculum and Learning Committee met on September 16th, 2021, starting at 7:31 a.m. There was no public comment. Kristen Perkowski provided an overview of the district school improvement plan, highlighting that all 9 schools in the district will implement Tier 1 social emotional learning using district-provided resources at a rate of 70% by the end of 2021-22. Focus areas really for that are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. She additionally shared an overview of our district's state testing data, which you just saw here. Ms. DeVries provided an update from the Finance and Operations Committee that met on September 15th. Daryl Kingsbury provided an update on the shortage of bus drivers and strategies the district is deploying to seek additional drivers. Dr. Martin shared information on the Calplex bond project groundbreaking ceremony delay due to the reviewing plans and making modifications because of increased steel costs. Ongoing challenges with transportation issues and plans and timeline to resolve them were discussed, and bond project photos of district property and current thinking on plans for the use of the property were shared. The meeting adjourned at 8:56 a.m.
Is there any questions for Jason or that committee? No? All right, thank you, appreciate that. 7B is Finance and Operations Committee. Tim?
Thank you. Finance and Operations Committee convened last Wednesday, September 21 at 7:30 a.m. with full attendance. The committee held a review and discussion of district real estate property. After the discussion, the community unanimously approved a recommendation to the board to consider the sale of 3 district parcels. Properties are to be listed are located one on Egan between 60th and 68th Streets, 84th Street east of Whitneyville Avenue, 76th Street and Patterson, the portion of the land at the south end of the new planned Dutton School. The recommendation will be discussed with the full Board of Education at a later time. Mr. Willis and Mr. Hess updated the committees on the progression of the 2020 bond project. Mr. Vries gave an update on the district's annual audit, which I believe will be voted on next month. The committee recommended administrator contract language be reviewed to ensure that this language meets ORS retirement requirements. And the district is facing a severe shortage of applicants for vacant support staff positions, and we continue to explore ways to recruit and retain these candidates in a very tough job market. Mr. Hess gave an update on the district transportation situation, which was discussed at length, and the meeting adjourned at 9:32 a.m. The next Finance and Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 13, 2021 at 7:30 a.m. Sorry.
Thank you. Any questions for that committee? No, thank you. Are there any additional board reports at this time? Oh, yeah, one of the things that has come up and we have received multiple emails on is the child care situation with the YMCA. And it certainly is a difficult situation, both for parents and for the district and the YMCA as a whole. I think that, you know, there's not enough staff to go around. While we as a district, we employ a lot of people. We too are short for various positions that we are unable to fill at this time, just as most other businesses are as well. Certainly the YMCA is feeling the effects of that too, and so we find ourselves in that predicament where we have had the buildings that have been unable to offer that service. Would you like to speak to that?
No, just other than we have tried to work with the YMCA. We're not in charge of their day-to-day operations, but what we have done is shared some of their job postings with our staff. So if any of our staff is interested in seeking additional hours working through their program, they can do that. And I think we've done that on a number of cases, but ourselves, last check, we were about 25 staff members short ourselves, and that changes. This has been just an incredibly interesting year trying to find employees, and you're hearing it across the state from bus drivers to custodial, maintenance, transportation, childcare. We're beating the bushes to do what we can to support them, but trying to take care of our own needs as well. So they have reached out. They're trying some different things. We'll try to support them the best that we can within reason, but we are also working our own shortages.
Thank you. Anything additional? Tim?
I have a few comments I'd like to share with the board. Excuse me. We concluded the August 16 board meeting with parents deciding if their children wear a mask in the classroom or not. By the end of the same week, an unelected official declared a health emergency mandating face masks for all staff and children in K through 6 buildings. There is no lesser vulnerable COVID-19 demographic than the ages found in K through 6. The mandate decision is completely void of common sense, and I'm trying to find the basis. I'm trying to find the basis for this as an emergency. The masking of our parents' children is creating many new health issues while making existing health issues worse. I personally have heard from parents whose children are now experiencing new health and mental health related issues directly tied to the effects of masking. I believe the vast majority of the community would support a common sense approach to alternatives to the mandate that was handed to us. This is not, excuse me, this is not an easy task. You have board members up here. Every one of us cares about the community and the kids. It's not an easy task. I feel that the community would support us in this matter. I'm just not finding this as a solution that's working or would work as we move forward. And this is just my own personal opinion, so thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Do we have any other board members with board reports? No? All right, thank you very much. We're going to move to 7D, which is superintendent report.
Yes, so a few quick items. One is homecoming is this week. So we are inviting our board members to help us bring the football team out of the tunnel for the halftime homecoming event. So that information was in your board memo. We'll probably have some additional information for those who would like or able to come out to support our school during the homecoming week in the game this coming Friday. I kind of addressed the staffing challenges. Our HR is working on some staffing solutions and just trying to be as creative as we can to mitigate the impact, but it's pretty challenging at times. Hopefully, board members got a chance to download our new CCS app. We have a phone app that we have been beta testing for a few weeks behind the scenes. We rolled it out last week to the public. We seem to be getting some very good feedback from it. A few areas that we're still working and adjusting on that. We also will be adding some tutorials on the website and how to navigate some of the features of the app. But overall, kudos to our communications team and our tech team for pulling that together. We were hoping to have our groundbreaking ceremony for the new community center next Monday, actually, on the 27th. We are postponing that to a date yet to be determined. Once we get that date specified, we'll put that information out there. In short, the postponement, we had to go back to the drawing board a little bit with the community center as well as the new Dudden Elementary site because of the impact of materials and the time and the cost, particularly as it relates to steel and electrical. We've seen price escalations of 50 to 70% over the past several months. So with that will play a significant portion on what we're able to do. Just because the prices have escalated doesn't mean that our bonds funds have escalated. So we've asked them to go back and to rework some of the things that we can do in terms of the architectural design structure of the building, and try to see if we can bring this price in line. And we feel that's more crucial to get that right before we start to break ground and then have to stop construction. So once we have that, and we are seeing some success with this process with Dudden Elementary, we still have a little bit more work to do with the community center, but we feel pretty good that we can make the necessary adjustments. Once we get that ironed out, then we will reset a new date for a groundbreaking ceremony to get the project underway. And that is all that I have.
Yeah, I just wanted to real quick echo, the new app looks great. I love the notification features. I think it's fantastic. So good job to whoever might have participated in that.
Thank you.
Additional questions? All right, thank you. All right, at this point in time, we're going to move to our interested citizens public comment section. At this time, I will ask that anybody who's planning to speak have their card turned in. Thank you. I want to say thank you to those that have been coming and observing our 3 minutes that are allowed. Thank you for helping that move through. I'm going to try and call, I'm going to give a name, a person on deck, or, you know, the next person and a person on deck, just to kind of help move it along so there's not a gap between as much, if that works out. So we're going to start with Mrs. Kelly Peterson. Next will be Elizabeth Crosby, followed by Jessica Wood.
I teach kindergarten, so I can be loud. Is that okay if I just sit here?
You are welcome to be loud.
I've taught for 14 years at Caledonia Elementary, so I'm having a very proud teacher moment. We have amazing staff and amazing kids that work hard every day. I also just wanted to thank everyone for just being so supportive. The board, superintendent, Daryl, our principals have been amazing through all of this. I am also the CEA president for the teachers union, so I'd like to thank everyone who's rallied to help teachers get their classrooms ready while navigating last-minute construction. Special thank you to new council members who came out, Jason Sudeyu and Tim Morris. Thank you for coming to Cal Lake and helping hands. Ian Durkee organized a whole crew of high school students to come over and craft to help them get moved in at the very last minute. So that was amazing for the student council of high school students to come and help us out. Our teachers are really working hard right now to establish routines and expectations within our classrooms. We're also working hard to build amazing relationships with our students and families to foster open lines of communication. The district teachers recognize that we are the first line of communication to make this a successful year. Our hope is that this open communication will cut down on parents looking to Facebook for answers. If parents have any questions or concerns about their child's education or about what projects we're doing in our classroom, we would hope and pray that they would come to us first and not post it on Facebook. We are all people too, and it's very disrespectful to downgrade our employees and our amazing teaching staff. A group of Heritage teachers got together last spring to brainstorm ways to bring some more fun and joy into their school year. They rolled out a themed Thursday this month with a school-wide theme every Thursday. Our students are enjoying a beach day, hat day, and color wars. We also have had picnics outside on Fridays and classroom takeovers on the morning announcements. It's been fun. We're also looking forward to seeing many families at our booth this Saturday. We are going to be a part of the Caledonia Harvest Festival for the first time, and so we are looking forward to seeing many young paparazzi coming to play games and hand out candy. So we're hoping to see many of you there too Saturday. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Turn it on. Okay. I'm Elizabeth Crosby. I want to give a first quick shout out to Kelly. She taught 3 out of my 4 kids how to read, and she's amazing. So is Jenny King, who taught my 4th one. I am here to simply talk about what I perceive as a lack of board leadership. We have parents who have been literally crying out to you to at least acknowledge what our kids are going through. We're not even asking you to agree with us. We're just asking you to say, we understand, I'm sorry you're going through that. And so many parents I have talked to have said they have sent countless emails and they have left countless voicemails. and no one has gotten emails back, and no one has gotten calls back. And then you wonder why we come here and we're angry. You guys need to understand, if you are on the board, whether you agree with us or not, on a human level, we deserve a response. And so that's what I want to point that out first of all. The second thing that I want to say is some of you have had parents contact you and tell you about the harm that these masks are causing their children. It's causing them learning loss. They are being damaged emotionally, physically, mentally, and socially. And what I'm asking right now is for you guys to make a tough choice. And the thing is, so many people nowadays will say, well, I didn't have a choice. And the thing is, they did. They just didn't want to take the consequences that come with it. And you can make the choice to go against this mandate. And you might think, I'm going to lose governmental immunity. Two things on that. Number one, there is absolutely no way they can definitively trace a case of COVID back to that school. There's no way someone's going to sue you for that. And number two, I know of 0 cases of kids in the K-6 range that have hospitalized a child and they've died, where there would even be a case that you would have to worry about somebody suing you. So then you go to the next thing, which would be, am I going to get shut down by the state? Please tell me which state trooper is going to stand in front of that door, because I know some of them, and they've said there's no way they're going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So then what it comes down to is funding. The state could pull your funding, and that is a genuine concern. But here's the thing. We can play them their own game. They throw us mandates and go, well, we know they might be illegal, but it's going to take them 6 months in court before they can do anything about it. So let them take us to court. We have a whole community that is behind you, that doesn't care, because our children's social, emotional, physical, and mental well-being is worth any penny we spend on litigation. Any penny. That's what we're saying. We don't care. We want somebody to fight for us, and you guys are like the last line. We need someone. So I'm here tonight begging you to consider fighting for us, taking the step, doing the right thing, defending these children where no one else can.
Thank you.
Thank
After
you, School Board
Jessica,
and Superintendent Martin,
What-
for the opportunity to speak in front of you, to listen and to learn from each other. There are many sensitive and emotional subjects right now, one being the mask on our kids, and is this the best interest for our children? Is this the healthiest solution, both mentally, physically, and most importantly, educationally? How long is it going to be okay for our kids to wear masks? For hours at a time. One thing we can all agree on is we want what is best for our kids, and that is why we are all here, and I can respect both sides. The parents that are advocating for choice are asking to do what is best for their kids. I want to point out one school I'm very proud of for standing up for the best interest of their kids. My mom is a teacher there, and it was an eye-opening experience to know that a school board can approve the plan. Fenville Elementary approved to allow choice for kids at their desks both last year and this year. This goes up to the 6th grade. The elementary school had their plan, proposed it to the school board, and it was approved by the school board. The Fenville administration said yes, because they know the data on masks, and they are not affected for stopping the virus from going through, or the best interest for our kids. Dr. Fauci even says masks are really not effective. Fenville has had no spread in the elementary with the procedures that were put in place. Kids can wear masks or not wear masks at their desk. Last year, they had 90 total COVID cases district-wide, which includes the high schoolers. They have almost 1,300 students and 0 hospitalizations last year. This year in the elementary, of 550 kids, 0 cases thus far. Their COVID plan can be found online. They will reasonably comply with Allegan County mandate as we did last year, and that's their verbiage. Reasonably comply is the key word here. The plan set in place is hand washing. They put in the best ventilation system in their school, regular cleaning, and social distancing when possible. They do require masks in common areas, which is the hallways, cafe, and buses, but as soon as they get to their desk, that's their choice. Do you know, as a school board, this can be approved through you guys as well. With the mandate, there is wiggle room. It's not black and white. You can approve no deaths at mass if considered social distancing at 3 feet apart. We have all seen the same data. Of course, total count can scare people, just as any virus in any form of the flu. If we showed every person that died from the flu, it does look concerning. However, if you look at the whole count, we have an over 99% survival rate, and God gave us an immune system for a reason. Are we okay with the government telling us we are mandated to take a vaccine? Should we be okay with the government telling us how to raise our kids or vaccinate our kids? I think all of us will agree that is not the government's place. The few questions that I would like to see the answers to, because every school got stimulus COVID money. Where did our COVID money go? Do you put it into the new ventilation system for all the schools that need a better one? Did you guys know that you can approve the choice for kids in the school, and have all of you guys read your bylaws? Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you to all three of you. The next we have up is Luke Markham, then Mark Piper, followed by James Sheely.
Good evening. My name is Luke Markham. I have a master's degree in social work. I am an Iraq War veteran, but most proudly, I am a husband and a father. My wife and I are raising 5 kids in this school district. My amazing wife is Becca Markham, sitting right there. She is currently homeschooling our oldest son. He is 10 years old and has had asthma his entire life. He was so excited to go to school this year and have a little bit of normalcy, but that was stolen from him by this disgusting mask mandate that strategically went into place the Friday before school was to start. For one, that was very devious and underhanded. It did not give any of us a chance to prepare or even consider what the school year would look like. Second, from what I read from the FOIA request, people knew this was going to happen, and it was planned that way. So shame on anybody who had a hand in that. Most of all, shame on Mr. London for his hand in that. We were told up until then it would be parents' choice for masking, as it should have been all along. We tried to get an exemption, but we were told by our pediatrician that the policy for Metro was to not sign mask exemptions. Maybe it was because there was sudden rush by many parents trying to get this done, which could have easily been avoided if we were not strung along all summer. Our pediatrician chose politics over health, which is very concerning. This is also the direction I see this district moving. My oldest daughter is in the middle school, and thankfully she is given a choice if she will wear a mask, so she is in school. Thankfully. I should not even have to say that word. It is her right to choose, and our right as our children's parents, if we want them to partake in this charade. If it was up to me, I would have her pulled from school as soon as that mandate was announced, so that she would not have to be a pawn in this district's power play. But I did not want to overwhelm my wife with having to teach both of our school-age children. She is a mother, this is a school. Your job is to teach, our job is to parent. You do not get to tell us what we do with our children. Should a mask mandate come out for the middle school and or the high school, she will not be attending. And yes, she is in support of this as well. I've read every email, every article that has come across during this time. I understand that you all sitting up there can't or won't make a change, but I am sure you know who to talk to that could make a change. We have been asked to remain quiet and empathetic by the health department for the sake of our children. I will remain empathetic to those that wish to wear a mask, but I will not be quiet as long as my children are being mandated to wear a mask when they are perfectly healthy, because that is not right. Nothing about this mandate passes the common sense test. We should not be masking our healthy children. If you want to wear it, fine, but don't think for a minute you can tell me or my wife what our children can do. I have had enough of this crap. We are being told to trust the science. This is the science that people are, they can't even figure out what bathroom to use. I'm not going to listen to those people. I am done sitting back and waiting for the right thing to be done. I am done watching the schools abuse their power, their positions of power, and justify it under our guise of education. This is a guise of education. This power is being justified under a guise of education. It is not right. What are you teaching our kids? To comply and not ask? Turn on our family, turn on our friends, and turn on their peers because of a tyrannical mandate? Kind of reminds me of a time and place that I read about in a history book once. Do your job as a school, and I will do mine as a parent. We do not step out of line. Why should we sit back and watch you? Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, who cares? It's our personal choice, always should have been, and always will be from here on out. This is the land of the free because of the brave.
I'm going to be boring compared to some of them. Thank you to everybody that's commented so far. Thank you for standing up, Tim. You guys excited to be here? I am. Seriously, good evening, guys. First of all, thank you to the committee for the change or the roles you guys are playing. It does mean a lot. We all know it is a tough spot that you're in, but we're just here to remind you guys to hold your feet to the fire, per se. Not literally. It's not a threat. I hate public speaking, so I don't intend this to be a complaint session or to throw stones. However, as a parent, I'm standing here very frustrated, as many are. It is my belief that parents have been misled all summer into believing that our school would return to normalcy, just to be let down at the last minute. With less than 72 hours before the beginning of school year, our superintendents within the KISD went to the Kent County Health Department director begging for a mask mandate. To be clear, this is not an accusation. It's public record from a FOIA. I'm convinced that they did this as they knew that most students and families were not going to be voluntarily masking their students, which in turn would put state and federal funding at risk. If this is true, this is a calculated and underhanded play against the public school parents to secure student enrollment and leave parents with absolutely zero time to find other schooling options. I'd like to point out to the board and the community that if there was any rationality that's true behind that, behind those decisions, then you have failed to uphold your commitment to the children of this community. You've put funding ahead of if this is true, I'm not accusing anyone, but if this is true, then the funding was put ahead of our children's best interests. Furthermore, you've not represented the community but instead yourselves. There are many families that were prepared to send their children elsewhere if masks were required, and as a board, you guys knew that. One question with regards to funding that's been asked already: what strings were attached to accepting any of the free stimulus money that we took? At this point, I do implore any of the board members, Tim, you already did it, thank you, but please stand up and explain to the community, to us, whether any of these statements are true or false or inaccurate, and clarify what really has happened. Just talk to us. What's the truth behind it? How do you guys come to the decisions you've made regarding these things? It's an opportunity for you guys to address us. Hold on, let's be respectful. It's a chance for you not to feel that you have to be defending yourselves, but instead an opportunity to clear up confusion and get the truth out. And that's going to help everybody. It's going to help us to understand you guys and help you guys to understand us. So I don't think it's too much to ask that you guys, even if we have to turn the mics off and have a closed, not official meeting, let's just talk and have some understanding. One-on-one, I mean, we're on your side, believe it or not. We don't mean to stand here and just gripe and yell, but help us to understand. So would any of you guys be willing to do that, to answer any of those questions? Tim, thank you for doing that.
We have James Shealy next, and then Stephanie Somerville, followed by Ian Rice.
Good evening, board members. My name is James Shealy. I'm a parent of 3 students in the district. What I'd like to ask the board tonight is help restore my rights as a parent. The school's been charged with enforcing this very polarizing, constitutionally contested mandate set forth by the Kent County Health Department. I'll remind you that public schools exist to educate, not to police, not to provide health care, and certainly not to enforce a health mandate that's so unfavored by the community you represent. I'll read you a few excerpts from the Cal Board of Education website. Somebody mentioned bylaws before. I've got them with me. Document 0131.1, bylaws and policies. Those bylaws and policies which are not dictated by the statutes and rules of the State Board of Education or ordered by the Superintendent of Public Instruction or a court of competent authority may be adopted and amended or repealed as long as they do not conflict with law. So in layman's term, you have the authority to pass any resolution that you deem appropriate as long as the state has already not dictated that and it doesn't conflict with current law. Section 0123, Philosophies of the Board. The board has the dual responsibility of implementing statutory requirements pertaining to public education and for meeting the desires of the residents. The board declares and thereby reaffirms its intent to act as a truly representative body of the citizens in all matters related to programs and operations. The board recognizes that ultimate responsibility of public education rests with the state, but the Board of Education has been assigned specific authority through statute, and the board shall not relinquish or fail to exercise that authority. I'll remind the board that there is currently no K-6 mask mandate dictated by the State Board of Education, superintendent, or a court of competent authority. There are no current Michigan laws stating that K through 6 students must be masked, meaning the Kent County Health Department has no authority over you as the board and over this school district. Sorry, I'm nervous. Therefore, with a simple majority vote, you could restore the rights of thousands of parents. You are currently failing to exercise your authority as a representative body, or to the representative body of the citizens of this community, which is in direct conflict with your own bylaws and philosophies. I keep hearing catchphrases and things like follow the science. Okay, if we're following the science, where is the imminent danger? Since I'm not an epidemiologist, I've heard that I'm not supposed to have an opinion on COVID science. Fine, I won't. I'll only ask you to start using common sense practices when it comes to COVID. How about, for example, not masking the least at-risk part of our population that desperately needs to see faces, mouths, and hear clearly as they begin learning in elementary schools. I'm asking this board to be leaders. Start representing this community. Survey the parents. It is no longer acceptable to hide behind excuses like our hands are tied. I've just explained that not only do you have the authority to stop mask mandates, but you are failing the obligation by relinquishing the authority to the Kent County Health Department and our current school administration. Remember, this is supposed to be Caledonia Community Schools, not Dr. Martin's school located in Caledonia, Michigan. When most of you were elected, COVID didn't exist. If you find yourself unable or no longer up to the task of being an elected official for this community, step down. There's no shame in that. When we adjourn this meeting tonight, stay in the room, talk to us, just like Mark did. Talk to us, explain where you're at. Tell us why you have refused thus far to do the job you were elected to do. Thank you.
Next is Stephanie Somerville. And then Ian Rice.
Totally off subject than the masking. I agree with everyone here, but my concern is the racism that's going on specifically at the high school. I've had a daughter who's been bullied for the past year, since last year, because of the color of her skin. Every single day, I have neighbors who have had kids told to go kill yourself, and they have pulled their kids out of the district and put them in EK so that they weren't around this. And that's 3 of my neighbors who have had this go on. And now my daughter is experiencing this because of the color of her skin. And I've been told by the school, last year, assistant principal, everything, just changed school districts. We're not equipped for this. I was told that the new principal would handle the situation this year. However, on Friday, the principal told my daughter, "What do you want me to do about it?" When I was told by Dr. Martin that this was going to be addressed and the new principal would handle this in a different manner, but telling my child who doesn't want to go back to the classroom, "What do you want me to do about it?" My daughter wants you to help her feel safe in this school. That's all we're asking for, is for my daughter and a lot of my neighbors and other people in this community to help our children feel safe. Because this is a very diverse community here. And we just want our school and our teacher and our faculties and the students there to help our children feel safe going to school. I pulled my child out of school last year and homeschooled her because of this. I don't want to do that again this year. I have a full-time job. She belongs in the classroom. But something needs to change at the school board level to help do something, anything, so that we're not being told, just leave the school district. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Next is Ian Rice, then John Sheely, and Jim Owens.
Hello, I'm Ian Rice. I want to say to that mother back there, I'm very sorry that happened to your daughter. It seems to be a pattern. It happened to my daughter, now her daughter. How many other kids does it have to happen to before you, the board members, decide to do something about the curriculum being done in the school, or even the teachers that are teaching these kids? Why is it the first day of school, my daughter comes home and says, "Hey, why am I being asked to determine what my pronoun is?" I think we all remember a couple months ago, our superintendent had an impromptu meeting with all of us out in the foyer out there and made a statement that this was not going to be a political school. Yet every turn we look around, that's all this school has become. It's become political. Despite the memos and the emails and the press releases that our superintendent has put out saying to the contrary. Because for some reason he thinks that the parents in this room aren't intelligent enough to realize that while you may not be teaching CRT directly as a course, the theories are being taught. And that was apparent by the teachers going to an actual course or a training session before the start of the school that went through processes of inclusion, diversity, anti-black, I think it was anti-black rhetoric. Why are we going through those things when all that's going to do is continue the process of what this mother is going through with her child, what my child's gone through, what other children are going through? You put out a memo tonight saying that a newspaper contacted you and said, we have video of someone saying some racial slurs on the. Why do you think that is? It's because you continue to push these agendas every single day. So who's policing the classrooms? Who's going to the teachers and saying, why are you doing this? You keep telling us you've given these teachers professional latitude to give certain curriculum to the kids. Well, apparently that latitude is non-existent. There's no box around them to prevent them from doing and saying whatever they want. They're telling our kids whatever they want, to indoctrinating our kids however they want. You've taken federal funding at the expense of our children's souls. So your chart you had tonight was all rosy and great. Green arrows up, and that was fantastic. So my question to the board then is, when does the state come in to determine what we're doing so well that the other schools aren't doing? The question was asked to this young lady over here, well, what are we doing differently? And if the parents really listened to her answer, she didn't answer it. It was, well, we're going to look into see what we're actually doing. We're going to determine how this really came to be, how we got so good. I've been in logistics for 25 years, and I can tell you point blank, if I gave that answer to my boss, I'm not having a job the next day. You know what you have done to get the numbers you have before you present it. So you can't sit here and tell me you've done anything that fantastic above and beyond other schools around the state to stand out that well, yet no one's coming here to figure out how do we emulate Caledonia to the rest of the state. that tells me those numbers might not be exactly correct. So this board, your integrity is in question, and your transparency is non-existent. And as we already said earlier, if you are no longer willing to stand up there and do your job, or if you don't know what your job is, it's time for you to step down. And let people go up there who actually do care about our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have John Sheely, and then Jim Owens, and Betsy Apple.
Good evening. I'm John Sheely. Lived here in this community for 35 years. I have one son that's already graduated, 3 still in the district. I'm here tonight, you guys, because I'm sad about what's going on. I'm sad that our kids are still wearing masks. Our weakest, most helpless voices. And you 7 people right now are the only ones that can do anything about it. And, you know, I appreciate all you guys. I really do. I appreciate your time. I know it's a thankless job. You cannot make everybody happy. Everybody in here knows that. We're asking you to stand up and fight for our kids. You know, we're not asking for you guys to outlaw masks. We are asking for an option. That's all we're asking for. Let's go back to kindergarten. You have 2 groups of people that can't agree on something. What do? We compromise, right? We give people an option. And you 7 people are failing to do that. I know it's complicated, but we're asking you to stand up, please. Please stand up for our kids. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Owens. I'm a licensed physical therapist for the last 20 years. I am an adjunct professor at Grand Valley State University. I am also a private practice owner for the last 13 of my 20 years of practice. Prior to getting my master's degree from Grand Valley State, I also got a bachelor's degree in health science. What that equates to is my ability to sit in a lab had I not been able to go on further and become a physical therapist. I can tell you, medical doctors, physical therapists, anyone who's in the medical field, for the most part, has no idea how air contamination works and are not the subject matters on that. You have what's called an industrial hygienist. They're people who are actually legally bound and have case law supporting these folks. And you'll learn that these things have actually existed for over 20 years in OSHA. Hierarchies of control is what we're looking for. If you look at those hierarchies and you talk to anybody who knows their business in that field, they'll tell you that mitigating through children is probably, and people in general, but children is one of the worst things you could do. And I can simply say, by example up here tonight, as I've been observing as a medical professional, I can tell you that no one up there is providing a sterile field for their mask, Dr. Martin included as he's touching it. Now, the reason that's important is some will argue, yeah, masks work. And I would say, well, maybe if you wore them like a surgeon, one-time use, never touched them and threw them out, and then when you were introducing yourself to new people, you put a new mask on. Again, the paper ones don't really work. There's 40,000 viruses that can live on the end of a human hair. If you can put a hair between that silly paper mask and your face, you are contaminating the world. Only a true respirator will actually do that, and you can't get those. So that's the first part I'd like to talk about. Secondly, hospitalization and death are the 2 stats that you can actually, for the most part, count on. Cases are irrelevant in the simple fact that we don't know the sample size. If you use the CDC's numbers, originally they would say back in March it was 9 out of every 10 was asymptomatic. Now they're, I think, down to 4 out of 10. Regardless of that fact, what we're doing is futile. We're not doing anything that's actually helping the problem. I can tell you, though, as a subject matter in physical therapy and pediatric development, covering the child's face, the nonverbal cues, the ability to hear, enunciate words. These are things I'm sure you all are aware of from the school board or any teachers who are in here that are working through K through 6. What we're doing is we're damaging our children. And I can't even go as far as telling you how much bullying has occurred because I tell my kids, they know it's bull crap. And yet, they go in there with that attitude and they're being told, well, you got to play the game, kid. You got to play the game. And the old saying, would you jump off the bridge if Billy jumped? No, I wouldn't. And if you all start to look at the research that's coming through, especially with the vaccines, you're going to find out that the investigation is still being investigated. We don't know everything that's going on with this, and you're going to find out that it's not as good as we had all hoped. With that, I'm out of here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Betsy Apple, then we have Amy, and then Rebecca Markham.
If our children are truly in imminent danger, why aren't they wearing something like this? Are you aware what imminent danger means according to OSHA? This means you believe that death or serious physical harm would occur within a short period of time. In this case, why are our kids even allowed in school? Do you really feel like a cloth mask is going to protect our children? I'm not buying this. Something I've also noticed that's very obvious, there's a lack of leadership in many levels in the school and on the school board. Lots of fingers pointed in every direction, hands always are tied, putting the blame on everyone else, and no one taking responsibility. Besides, I'm asking, who's going to take accountability for the education of our children? Did you know that Caledonia schools aren't even ranked in the top 100 in the state? I do have a printout for you. Not one of the schools in Caledonia are ranked top 25 in just Kent ISD. Caledonia High School is ranked 55 according to Kent ISD ratings, with a 50% math efficiency rate and a 73% efficiency rate in reading. But what puzzles me is how we have a 90% graduation rate. Something just doesn't add up. How can our schools claim to be successful when half of our children aren't passing math, 27% of them aren't fluent in reading? Maybe if we stop focusing on teaching our children pronouns, emotions, oppression, social justice, and focus on teaching them math, science, English, and social studies without a political agenda attached to it. Our teachers are asked to teach SEL. Do our teachers have a psychology degree? My job as a parent is to teach my children how to deal with their emotions. I am their moral compass. I do not co-parent with the school. Sorry. I don't need you to teach them how to feel, how to identify others. I do not need the school to make all their health decisions for them. Our school has gone too far. They've overstepped their boundaries. So I ask, why are you doing this? And my only answer is funding. So let's be honest with ourselves. Our schools have sold our children out for funding. Our children are not people anymore. They are strictly dollar signs and data. And I will give this to you.
Did you say Rebecca Markham next?
Amy?
Yeah. Okay, we're good. Oh, you said Amy next? You go next, I'll go after.
Whichever one of you wants to go, as long as I know who it is, I'm good, so.
My name is Amy. My first board meeting was in May of this year. I told you guys I would be back. I also told you during that meeting that if the mask mandates came back or vaccine requirements that I would be removing my son. I followed through on that promise, and I did pull him. It was a very traumatic experience for the both of us, as I did send an email that Monday morning, the 23rd, after we had received the information that Adam London had gone ahead with what the superintendents had requested. I sent the email on Monday letting the school know. There was 3 individuals on there, as well as my son's father, letting them know that my son was going to be unenrolled from school. That did not happen. I did receive an email back from Mr. Martin letting me know that the unenrollment process had been started, and it wasn't. I was not notified that it wasn't started, and there's a whole other situation that has to do with that. So I'm incredibly disappointed at how I was treated by the administration, by the staff, by the principal of my son's school. What we went through was very traumatic. It was terrible for my son. He never should have had to have dealt with that, especially 3 days prior to school starting. I think it is incredibly disappointing that this board allowed it to happen all summer. I know that we knew that this was coming down the pipeline. We knew August 16th when the superintendents requested that this happen. We knew it was going to happen weeks before. Luckily, I had a backup plan for my child, but most parents didn't. I will tell you that, Mr. Martin, I personally watched you touch your mask 15 times. I was also recording, so I couldn't see a lot. I was also paying attention to, and there was many other times that I was notified that it did happen. Each time, and even right now that you're doing that, you should be removing your mask. This is ridiculous. It's virtue signaling. You don't wear a mask at the football games, but you're sitting up there with your board wearing one right now. Why?
Is it my turn now? Am I okay?
Yes, it's your turn.
I wasn't going to speak because my husband spoke, and he did an amazing job. But I want to talk about not my kids right now. I want to talk about the damage you're doing to me. I was ready to send my kids. My son, he was so happy to be going. And for up to 2 weeks, I did keep him out, but I communicated with the school every single day to let him know, because I was supposed to be getting an exemption for him because he does have asthma. But then my doctor, Valerie Klusterman, I'm going to say her name because she was fired because she stood up for us. And I won't go into detail, but she worked for Metro, but she was going to give us our exemption, but she was fired the Friday before his appointment. So I did everything possible to get my son into school. Everything. I contacted a lawyer. I contacted the principal, and I was working with her at Emmons, and she was wonderful. She was absolutely wonderful. But no matter what I did, I couldn't get him in without a mask, and I can't put a mask on my son who already can't breathe. But then Metro came up with the policy of, they won't sign exemptions. So what am I as a parent supposed to do? Send my son who already can't breathe with a mask on? And I am so sick of the freaking science, because this is what I am more than anything. I am a Christian. And God is going to take me, and he's going to take my kids when he says it's time, not when the science says it's time. God already has a plan of when my kids are going to go, when I'm going to go. You guys aren't God, I hate to tell you. As a Christian, I can't even get a religious exemption for him. How is that fair to us? How is that right to us? And I'm just begging you guys, please do something for our children. Do it for me, because like I said, I have been so mentally drained and defeated because I fought so hard to have him with you guys. And my children are the most precious things to me. They matter more than anything. And I trust them to be with you. And now, yes, I have taken my son out because it is not safe for him to be there. But I just really wish and I pray that you guys will stand up for us, please. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. I just need a motion to adjourn at this time? I do not have any additional cards. Thank you. Can I please have a second? Kyle's the first. We have a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Jason. All in favor, say aye. 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 All right. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.